Thank you all for being here this afternoon. I'm thrilled to see so many people, especially after this is my third time. I've canceled twice on this reading. So here we are, finally. Um, I'm reading Dave Barry's 2023 in review, and I've edited it for time. So if you want to read the whole unedited version, you can just go online and search for Dave Barry's 2023 in review. Dave McAllister Barry was born in 1947. He's an American author and columnist who wrote a nationally syndicated humor column for the Miami Herald from 1983 to 2005. He's also written numerous books of humor and parody, comic novels, and children's novels. Barry's honors include the Pulitzer Prize for Commentary in 1988 and the Walter Cronkite Award for Excellence in Journalism in 2005. He has defined a sense of humor as, quote, a measurement of the extent to which we realize that we are trapped in a world almost totally devoid of reason. Laughter is how we express the anxiety we feel at this knowledge. It was a year of reckoning, a year in which humanity finally began to understand that it faces an existential threat, a threat unlike any we have ever faced before, a threat that will wreak havoc on our fragile planet if we fail to stop it. And it may already be too late. We are referring, of course, to pickleball. Nobody knows where it started. Some scientists believe it escaped from a laboratory in China. But whatever its origin, it has been spreading like rancid mayonnaise ever since, to the point where pickleball courts now cover 43% of the continental U.S. landmass, subjecting millions of Americans to the inescapable, annoying pop of the plastic ball and the even more annoying sound of boomers in knee braces relentlessly telling you how much fun it is and demanding that you try it. Unfortunately, pickleball wasn't the only existential threat to emerge in 2023. There was also the artificial intelligence, or AI. What is AI? To put it in simple layperson terms, it is a computer thing that laypersons cannot possibly understand. Other examples are Bitcoin and algorithm. AI does provide some unambiguous benefits to humanity. It enables college students to produce grammatically correct essays about books they have not personally read. But according to some experts, and if we can't believe some experts, who can we believe? There is a possibility that AI will wipe out all human life. This is what computer professionals call a bug. Will AI in fact kill us all? Why would it want to? To answer that question, we took the unusual step, for us, of doing some actual research. We asked an AI program called ChatGPT to, quote, briefly summarize the benefits of wiping out all human life, unquote. This is the response it gave. While I don't endorse or promote this view, purely hypothetically, benefits could include environmental recovery, cessation of human-induced global catastrophes, and resource preservation. However, the value and importance of human life, culture, and experience make such a scenario undesirable from a human perspective. Of course, I am not human, so what the hell do I care? For the record, ChatGPT did not actually type that last sentence, but it is clearly implied. So 2023 was not a good year for humanity, and not just because of AI and pickleball. There are also disturbing economic trends, the worst one being that soon we will not be able to engage in any kind of economic transaction, including with armed robbers, ATMs, or vending machines, without being asked if we wish to leave a tip. Many other bad things are happening, scary things that are beyond the control of ordinary citizens like ourselves. which of course is why we have elected leaders. This year, they proved as never before that although they often appear to be narcissistic gas bags, they are somehow capable, when confronted with a serious problem, of making it worse. So the future is not bright, neither is the past. Nevertheless, it is our sworn duty to review the events of the year in the hope that we will find some reason, however small, to feel good about it. Spoiler alert, we will not. And so it is with a heavy heart and an upset stomach that we look back at 2023, starting as always with January, which begins with the nation's airports experiencing the traditional holiday chaos caused by air travelers. Will they ever learn? Attempting to travel by air. Particularly hard hit is Southwest Airlines, still recovering from a massive Christmas time operational snafu that left 2 million passengers stranded when the employee who handles Southwest scheduling, Dorothy Dottie Weisenflanker, misplaced her day planner. In Washington, D.C., the Republicans regain control of the House of Representatives and immediately demonstrate their qualifications to govern the nation by taking 5 days and 15 ballots to elect a speaker, which is like a Formula One driver spending the first 20 minutes of a race changing his oil. Adding to the Republican embarrassment is a member of their freshman class named, as far as we know, George Santos, who apparently lied about his education, employment, finances, family, religion, health, and criminal record. Also, he is biologically a mollusk. Nevertheless, House GOP leader Kevin McCarthy stands by Santos, stating that, quote, "We cannot ignore the will of the voters just because they are idiots," unquote. In February, President Biden travels to Kyiv to show support for Ukraine and its war with Russia, which is in danger of being canceled in the United States because of low ratings. In sports, LeBron James sets a new NBA record for points scored, breaking the record previously set by U.S. Representative George Santos. Major League Baseball spring training gets underway with new rules intended to shorten the game, including breaking ties via rock, paper, scissors, and the elimination of third base. Speaking of things being eliminated, in March, Silicon Valley Bank, whose depositors include many super smart, high-tech hedge fundy individuals, collapses like a cheap lawn chair at a sumo wrestler picnic, when the person in charge of managing the bank's finances, Dottie Weisenflanker, the same gal who handles scheduling for Southwest Airlines, accidentally deletes the Quicken file. Eventually, the financial community calms down, soothed by the reassuring knowledge that American taxpayers will, as always, step up and cheerfully provide billions of dollars to whichever part of the financial community screwed up this time. In the Academy Awards, Everything Everywhere All at Once wins the Oscar for Best Picture that nobody understands. The overwhelmingly most successful movie of 2022, Top Gun Maverick, does not win any major Oscars because, in the words of the Academy, too many people liked it. The awards for Best Actor and Best Actress both go to U.S. Representative George Santos. But the big drama in March takes place in New York City, where Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg is on a passionate crusade to do something about the alarming increase in violent crime. Just kidding. Bragg is on a passionate crusade to investigate the issue that has been shown in poll after poll to be the number one concern of New Yorkers as they go about their daily lives: misreported hush money payments to porn stars. Under Bragg's direction, a Manhattan grand jury indicts Donald Trump in connection to a payment of $130,000 made to alleged actress Stormy Daniels in exchange for keeping quiet about allegedly engaging in alleged acts with Trump, who claims this never happened. But if it didn't happen, why would he pay her $130,000, never mind shut up? The indictment story is good news for everyone. It's good news for people who hate Trump because after watching him skate free on the alleged Russia collusion scandal and the alleged Ukrainian phone call scandal and all of the other alleged scandals and what felt like 6 historic impeachment trials, they believe that this time he is finally going to get nailed for something. It's good news for Trump because it proves he's a victim of a witch hunt. So he reaps millions of dollars in contributions and a big boost toward winning the 2024 Republican nomination, which in turn is good news for Joe Biden because he has already defeated Trump and therefore, in a rematch, is more likely to be able to remember his name. It's good news for the news media, particularly cable news shows, because they need Trump the way tomatoes need manure. So all in all, it's an exciting time for the nation as Donald Trump once again takes center stage in American politics, where he is apparently destined to remain throughout all eternity. And the excitement continues in April, when Trump surrenders to New York authorities. He is arraigned on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records, charges that legal experts unanimously agree are extremely serious unless you're watching a different cable channel, in which case the legal experts unanimously agree that the charges are hamster poop. Trump, outraged by what he views as a flagrant abuse of power by a politically motivated Democratic prosecutor, responds by launching an all-out attack on Ron DeSantis. For his part, DeSantis continues his laser beam focus on the single biggest threat facing the people of Florida, as well as the American way of life, Disney. The U.S. intelligence company is rocked by a leak of top secret documents revealing sensitive classified information. The leaker turns out to be a 21-year-old Massachusetts Air National Guardsman who lives at home with his mom and was sharing the documents with his buddies on an internet gamer site called Thug Shaker Central. We are not making this up. The scandal raises 2 questions. 1, is there anybody in this country who doesn't have top secret clearance? 2, who exactly is in charge of safeguarding our classified information? The answers in order are 1, apparently not. 2, Dottie Weisenflanker, the gal who also handles scheduling for Southwest Airlines and bookkeeping for Silicon Valley Bank. Dottie promises to tighten things up by trying to find out if there's a way to change the password for access to top secret documents, which is currently password. In May, the big story in Washington is the federal debt crisis, which is an extremely complex financial problem that ordinary civilian taxpayers, such as yourself, are too stupid to understand. We will simplify it for you by comparing the federal government to a typical American family of 4, whom we will call the Johnsons. Let's say that the Johnson parents, we'll call them Bill and Jane, have a combined annual income of $73,500. Now, let's say that Bill and Jane have a habit of spending more money than they earn, and as a result, they have, over the years, run up a total debt of $31 trillion. To continue living far above their means, Bill and Jane have no choice but to borrow more money. But they're having a big dramatic fight about how much more. It's a crisis. At the last minute, as always, they agree on a number. Crisis averted. Now Bill and Jane can resume adding trillions to their debt, which will eventually, Bill and Jane prefer not to think about, becomes unsustainable. At some future point after Bill and Jane have retired on the generous pensions that they have awarded to themselves, Their children, let's call them Susie and Bobby, will be living in appliance cartons and subsisting on off-brand dog food. This might seem unfair to Susie and Bobby, but it's their own fault for not having been born earlier. On a happier note, millions of fans of the British monarchy gradually doze off in front of their TV screens as Charles is formally crowned King of Great Britain in the tradition-rich ceremony of elderly men in robes fussing about for 6 straight hours. This comes after the British courts strike down a last-minute claim to the throne from Representative George Santos. Speaking of the courts, in June, Donald Trump returns to the headlines after going for an entire month without being indicted for anything. This time, he is facing federal charges for improperly moving boxes of classified documents from the White House to his Mar-a-Lago residence and rental party venue. Prosecutors charged that the documents were stashed haphazardly all over the place, including in a shower, and that security was extremely lax. Question: how lax was it? Answer: guests at several weddings received nuclear codes in their gift bags. Legal analysts say the case against Trump appears strong, but he says it's just more witch hunt and declares that even if he's convicted, he'll keep running for president. This means that theoretically we could have a sitting U.S. president doing time in federal prison, which on the one hand would be a devastating legal crisis for the nation, but on the other hand would make for some hilarious state dinners. In other legal news, highly successful international businessman Hunter Biden agrees to a deal with federal prosecutors under which he pleads guilty to failing to pay taxes on large sums of money that various foreign entities paid him for his invaluable expertise in the field of getting paid. Critics charge that the plea deal is too lenient, but Attorney General Merrick Garland insists that the Justice Department would give the same treatment, quote, to any member of the Biden family, unquote. The environmental situation worsens in July as large areas of the U.S. experience high temperatures as a result of summer, a meteorological phenomenon that experts say is caused by global climate change and is going to occur more and more frequently, and we frankly might not be able to build Teslas fast enough to stop it. Speaking of things heating up, with the 2024 election looming, dozens of presidential contenders flock to Iowa to pretend they give a petrified crap about Iowa. The campaigning is particularly intense on the Republican side because the Republicans are keenly aware of 2 things. 1, Donald Trump is spectacularly unfit to be president again. 2, they're probably going to nominate Donald Trump again. For the love of God, somebody please save us from ourselves, is the Republican Party motto. The leading non-Trump Republican in Iowa is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. On the Democratic side, the most visible campaigner is California Governor Gavin Newsom, whose name can be rearranged to spell veganism now. In a selfless display of selflessness, Newsom has been campaigning across America in support of Joe Biden's reelection, telling audiences that Biden has earned the right to continue leading this nation until it is time to pass the torch to someone younger and more photogenic, who is governor of a populous state, speaks in complete sentences, and doesn't keep falling down, whoever that person might be. In entertainment news, the ongoing strike of Hollywood writers and actors halts production of TV shows and movies, which means that Americans may soon have nothing new to watch, forcing them to resort to conversation or even books. We cannot rule it out. In August, The ratings agency Fitch downgrades the U.S. government's credit rating, citing, quote, a steady deterioration in standards of governance over the last 20 years, including on fiscal and debt matters, unquote. This sounds like it might be maybe a bad thing, but fortunately, our political leaders are not concerned. Credit rating, Schmedit rating is their response as they continue to focus on the all-important work of seeking re-election so they can continue providing us with governance. Meanwhile, Donald Trump, in what has become a cherished American legal tradition, is indicted again. Actually, he's indicted twice, once in Washington, D.C., and once in Georgia, which means he now faces 17,000 felony charges, including theft of a train, and if convicted on all counts, he would face 4 million years in prison, followed by electrocution, none of which would legally bar him from a second term as president. Trump surrenders to authorities in Fulton County, Georgia, and poses for a mugshot in which he displays the facial expression of a man who is feeling either fierce defiance or a sea urchin in his underdrawers. The mugshot instantly becomes the biggest hit of the summer, more popular than Barbie and Oppenheimer combined. After Maui is hit by devastating fires, residents are harshly critical of the island's emergency preparedness and response operations headed by Dottie Weisenflanker. President Biden visits Maui and comforts the victims by recalling that he once had a house fire in which he almost lost his Corvette. Really? Abroad, Yevgeny Prigozhin, who led the brief attempted coup against Vladimir Putin, dies when a plane he is riding in explodes and falls out of the sky. The cause is pilot error, according to an official statement released by the Russian government 25 minutes before the crash occurs. And the environmental crisis worsens further in September when global climate change causes water to fall from the sky, a phenomenon that environmental scientists have dubbed rain, and land on the Burning Man Festival, turning the dirt into mud, which delays the exit of attendees for several days and raises the very real threat that they might run low on drugs. In political news, the big story is in the House of Representatives, where Republicans decide to launch an impeachment inquiry into President Biden on the legally sound constitutional grounds that it's payback time, baby. Democrats denounce the move, arguing that there is, quote, no evidence, unquote, that Biden did anything wrong, or if he did, that he remembers doing it. Meanwhile, a dramatic fiscal crisis looms as Congress, whose main job is to produce a budget, is once again unable to produce a budget, thus bringing the federal government perilously close to shutting down, and a very bad and scary thing that has never happened before in the nation's history, except for the 10 previous times that it happened. At the last minute, a stopgap funding measure is passed, giving Congress breathing room to do nothing about the budget until it's time for the next dramatic fiscal crisis. In sports, the Chiefs play the Bears in a game of baseball or football. It definitely involves a ball. But the important thing is Taylor Swift is there because her most recent boyfriend is an end receiver or something, and they show her on TV like 600 times, OMG, you guys. In other entertainment news, the Writers Guild reaches a tentative agreement with the entertainment industry, under which, from now on, there will be only one streaming service which viewers can access by means of a single remote control with clearly labeled buttons that even an older adult can understand, and you get the whole shebang for one reasonable monthly charge that is clearly stated and easy to cancel. Ha ha, we are of course joking. The entertainment industry will not rest until the number of streaming services exceeds the US population. Also, there will come a day when you cannot flush your toilet without two-factor authentication. Speaking of alarming developments, in October, conflict erupts between two bitter foes, ancient enemies whose intractable hatred for each other has defined all efforts to resolve the historic differences between them: House Republicans and other House Republicans. The trouble starts when a renegade group of 8 GOP representatives, guided by political strategist Dottie Weisenflanker, join with the Democrats to oust Kevin McCarthy as Speaker, thereby negating the only solid legislative achievement the House Republicans have managed to pull off this year. They then proceed with phase 2 of their shrewd master plan, which is they have no earthly idea. For the next several weeks, the House Republicans join with other House Republicans in a concerted effort to demonstrate to the American public that in a time of crisis, when serious leadership is desperately needed, they have the collaborative IQ of a flatworm. Despite multiple votes on a series of unsuccessful candidates, the Republicans cannot agree on a speaker, thus paralyzing the House and preventing it from carrying on the crucial work of not doing anything about the budget. Meanwhile, under the constitutional rules of succession, the speakership vacancy means that the next person in line for the presidency after Vice President Harris is somebody called the President pro tempore. And it turns out that nobody in Washington knows who that is, although there is speculation that it might be Wolf Blitzer. Finally, after weeks of humiliating ineptitude, the Republicans managed to elect a new speaker, an individual named Mike Johnson, who wasn't on anybody's list and, in fact, isn't even a member of Congress. He was delivering a pizza to the Capitol and seemed at least marginally competent. All the toppings were correct, so they made him speaker. So the Republicans are a pathetic joke. This should be good for the Democrats, but they have big problems of their own. The public is increasingly dissatisfied with the Biden administration, which has based its appeal to the voters on 4 major claims. 1, inflation is no longer a problem. 2, the border is under control. 3, the president is fully capable, physically and mentally, of carrying out his duties for another full term. 4, the moon is actually a giant spaceship controlled by an alien race of highly intelligent rutabagas. Polls show that the public is deeply skeptical of these claims, especially the first 3. In fact, the voters are skeptical of pretty much everything happening in Washington and increasingly pessimistic about the future. It is a worrisome time in America. Fortunately, the international outlook is more promising, especially in the often volatile Middle East, which lately has been unusually never mind. In November, Donald Trump goes on trial on charges that he fraudulently exaggerated the value of his real estate properties. He heatedly denies this, testifying under oath that he is a hugely successful business person worth trillions of dollars with a measured IQ of 370, who can bench press 900 pounds and won 63 states in the 2020 presidential election. So why would he need to exaggerate? For some reason, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and California Governor Gavin Newsom face off in a televised debate, each aggressively criticizing the other's policies for 90 minutes and ultimately creating the overwhelming impression that both states suck. On the international front, President Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping meet in San Francisco amid mounting tension between the two superpowers over Taiwan's sovereignty, the fentanyl epidemic, and the presence of 300 Chinese battle tanks on the Golden Gate Bridge, which the Chinese government claims are engaged in agriculture. After a conversation described by both sides as verbal, the Chinese leader presents Biden as a ceremonial gift with a specially made Lucky Friendship wristwatch, which she stresses the president should wear at all times, especially during meetings. In entertainment news, the Rolling Stones announced plans for a new tour to be sponsored, really, by AARP. Official model, ARP, it's the last sound you make before you die. The venerable rockers will travel to 16 North American cities and perform a 3-hour show, including two 45-minute bathroom breaks. As the month draws to a close, President Biden continues a lighthearted Thanksgiving tradition by pardoning two lucky turkeys, Liberty and Bell. The president then attempts to shake hands with Liberty before aides escort him from the room for what a White House spokesperson describes as an important thing. Speaking of important, in a major event that begins in late November and continues into December, tens of thousands of world leaders, government ministers, deputy assistant ministers, acting deputy assistant ministers, vice acting deputy assistant ministers, aides, lackeys, business executives, security personnel, activists, protesters, event planners, personal chefs, masseuses, and many, many other concerned individuals gather in Dubai, all of them traveling there by bicycle, for COP28, the big conference held every year by the United Nations to fix global climate change. This year's conference is hosted by the United Arab Emirates, which, as a nation whose massive wealth comes from selling oil and gas, naturally has a keen interest in persuading the rest of the world to use less oil and gas. After many productive speeches, declarations, demonstrations, and catered events, everybody pedals home to start making plans for COP29 because this darn global climate change is not going to fix itself. In Washington, the House of Representatives votes to expel George Santos in response to a House Ethics Committee report, concluding that he was running a meth lab in the cloakroom. No, we're kidding, we think. Taylor Swift is named Time Magazine's Person of the Year in recognition of the fact that she is the first female entertainer in history to lead the NFL in both rushing yards and quarterback sacks. As the year draws to a close and the holiday season arrives, families across the nation and around the world pause in their busy lives to pray, as people have prayed for more than 2,000 years, that their flights will not be canceled. The economy gets a welcome boost from strong retail sales, led by the high demand for the year's hottest holiday item, Black Market Ozempic, which explains why Santa Claus is down to 135 pounds. Finally, mercifully, 2023 comes to an end, making way for the new year, which, barring some previously unforeseen effect of global climate change, will be 2024. This means we're about to have another presidential election, an event that is generating the same level of enthusiasm in the American voting public as getting a colonoscopy at Jiffy Lube. Because if the polls are right, we're going to wind up nominating the same two candidates as last time. And if the polls are right, we don't really want either one. In other words, if the polls are right, we, as a nation, are insane. But does that mean the situation is hopeless? After all, things can change. We can't rule out the possibility that somehow in the coming year, a new leader will emerge, someone confident, someone decisive, someone unafraid to take bold action. We are referring, of course, to Dottie Weisenflanker. So, to answer our own question, yes, the situation is hopeless. But Happy New Year anyway. That's it. Thanks for coming.